Hello everyone, welcome again. In this software testing tutorial, we are going to learn how to write the test case in any software testing project. Now, before we get into the details of writing the test case, we will also understand what all key fields need to be there in test case template, and then that template you can follow to write any test case within your project. We will understand this template by writing it in the Excel sheet, and that those fields that we'll discuss in this Excel sheet template, test case template, you can easily correlate with any of the test management tools that you will be working in. So most of the companies will be using test management tools to maintain or document the test case, but still there are many organizations who do not have either the budgets to buy the paid tool, or do not have the skilled people within the testing team or admins to install the test management tool. So small companies might be still using the Excel sheet to maintain the test case and do the execution, but there's a lot of overhead in that. I'll explain that in a couple of minutes. So before we get into the actual section, I would recommend you to basically watch my previous tutorial on what is test case, because in that I have explained what exactly test case is and why you need a test case. Briefly, I'll cover the definition of the test case here as well. So if we talk about test case, a test case is a document which has the step-by-step description of the process that any tester or anybody in the team will follow to perform the operation on the application or the software and ensure that the particular software fulfills the end user requirement or meets the expected criteria as per the requirement, right? So this is a brief introduction about the test case. Now let's go back and understand how you can what all key fields are there in test case template. So we'll document test case template and then write a real example of the test case for an e-commerce website. So if we go back to the Excel sheet here, so I'll walk you through the key sections of this particular test case. So the first field of the test case is the test case ID, right? So test case ID, if you're using test case management tool, then ID will be generated automatically. Now we are using this Excel sheet to explain you all the key fields that will be there in the test case template. The next field is created by, right? Then we have reviewed by. So whosoever will be reviewing this particular test case, his name or her name will go here. Created by, the tester's name will go in the created by section. Then we have priority. So priority of the test case, whether that test case is high, low, medium, right? So any priority of the particular test case, based on how critical the test case is, you define the priority there. Okay. The next section is of the prerequisites. So prerequisites is the next section, and after prerequisites, the next section of the test case, or the next thing, is the title, description. So title will have the title, okay, so whatever the test case is all about, and then description will elaborate that particular test case in a more elaborate way. Okay, the next thing is about the step. Okay, so in the step number, these are the step number or the actual steps that a person will follow to perform that particular operation on the software. So step number and then test step, right? So step number will be the actual step numbers, so 1 2 3 4, and then test step is the actual operation that needs to be followed. Okay, so let me format this. Okay, so test step, then test data. If there is any data requirement for the test step, that data will go here in the test data section. Then you have expected result. Okay, so say for example a person follows this particular first step, and first step says launch a particular website in any browser, right? Then what is the expected result? So the website should launch successfully, right? So if that is the expected result, that detail goes here, that website should launch successfully. Okay. uh, so after expected result, you have the actual result. So when we say actual result, is the actual result when a tester is going to execute. So in the expected result, it will say this is the expected result. And when I, as a tester of a project, I execute this particular test case, and whatever outcome I find in the application will be defined in the actual result. Okay. And then we have execution details. And in execution detail, you have something like pass. So whether this particular step has passed, failed, or this is blocked, right? Or it can be, like on hold. So you can specify any of these execution details to define what exactly has happened to this particular test case or the steps in here. Okay. The next thing is about the comments. All right. So any comments when a person executes this particular test case. So these are some of the key fields in your test case template. Okay. So let me highlight these. And sorry, I'll make these as one. Okay. So here now you see our test case template is ready, and this is ready in Excel sheet. So now you can use this Excel sheet to write your test cases, and then you can correlate these fields with any of the test management tool. And if you're using test management tool, you still need to follow same process to write the test case, right? So in test management tool, you just have to correlate which field correlates to which of these fields, and then put this specific data that we are understanding in this particular tutorial into those fields, right? So now if we want to have a example, or we'll write an example of the test case. So what I'll do is I'll go to this particular website, which is amazon.com, right? And here, say for example, I want to do a very simple test case. So when I go to amazon.com.au and go to electronics section, it should only display electronics item on this particular category page. Say for example, this is what I will be, or I need to verify. I'm a tester on this particular project, and I have to verify that the filtered products that are displayed in a particular category are only of that category, and it's not mixed from other categories. So what will be the steps that I'll follow overall? Okay, so the first step is to basically launch this particular application, right? So we'll start from the test case ID. So usually test case ID we always prefix with TC underscore or TC hyphen, something like that. So I'll just say TC 0001 if you're maintaining it in Excel sheet. Otherwise, test case ID will be automatically generated by test case management tool. Okay, so created by whosoever is creating it. So I'm creating it at the moment. So for example, I'm the tester in the project, so I'll provide my name. Reviewed by is not required at the moment because I haven't documented the test case yet. Once I'll complete the test case, I'll send it to test lead or somebody else in the team to review it, right? So priority, I can specify if it is like high priority test case, I can specify high priority there. Prerequisite is any prerequisite or any pre-existing information or software that needs to be required or needs to be there before you can actually execute this particular test case, need to be in prerequisite. So say for example, I want to verify this functionality in Edge browser. Okay, so prerequisite could be Edge browser should be installed. Okay, so that could be one of the prerequisite. Now in the title, you specify the title of the test case. Okay, so in the title, what we can say is, we can say verify that electronics category filters only items. Okay, so verify the electronics category filters only electronic items on the particular electronics page. So some title which is easily understood by other team members need to go into the title of the test case. In the description, you elaborate the title in a more detailed way, so that if there are more details that need to be understood by the test team member, that will go into the description. Okay, so now when we come to the steps, the step number will start from 1 to whatever number of steps that need to be followed. So in this particular case, the test step, the first step is to basically launch the website URL in Edge browser. Okay, so website URL, what is the data here that we have to launch? So URL will be our amazon.com website, right? So I'll just paste that into test data column here. Okay, and the expected result is the website should launch successfully, right? So website should launch successfully, because that's the first step before we can actually verify that the items are getting filtered. Okay, so this is first step of our test case. The second step is to click on electronics category. Okay, so now in the electronics category there is no test data, we are just clicking on the electronics category, so you can leave it blank, and you need to provide test data only if there is any data requirement. So for example, you are on the login page, there will be username and password required to log in, right? So that username and password can be provided into the test data column. Okay, so here expected result is electronics page or electronics category page should get displayed successfully, right? And the third step is to verify that the items on the electronics category page are the only items that are getting filtered from the electronics category. Okay, so what we can do is in the third step, we can say scroll to the bottom of the page and verify the products on page. Okay, so here the expected result is only electronics items should be filtered and displayed, right? So this is third step. So if you see here, let me format this one as well. Okay, so if you see here, there are 3 key steps that need to be followed to verify that electronics item are getting filtered and displayed on the electronics category, right? So here the first step is I'm launching this particular website. Okay, so I launch the browser, okay, and I'll launch this particular website. That's the first step. Second step is I'll click on the electronics link here, right? And then I'll scroll down and verify that the items that are getting displayed here are only from the electronics category. Okay, so here I see these are not the items from the electronic category, so this is failing what our test case says, right? So in that particular case, when I'm actually executing this particular test case, I'll mention that in the lightning deals I see the items from other categories. Okay, so that might be a failure. So what we have to do is we have to basically scroll down and verify that all the electronic items are being displayed here and none other items are being displayed. Okay, so this is what we are documenting in our test case. So test case, we are documenting the steps that need to be performed any data that is required and the expected result for that particular test case. Okay, so now once your test case has been written, the next step is to basically get it reviewed by the other team member or the team lead. So what you will do is, if you are maintaining your test case in Excel sheet, you will send these Excel sheet directly to your reviewer, or you will store it in some shared location, and the person will have a look, and if everything is fine, the person will review and mention his name or her name here. Okay, so reviewed by, and then they can also add review date. Okay, so you can also have this review date in the template as well. Okay, so they can mention on which date this test case got reviewed. Once this test case has been reviewed, the next step is, once the test case is reviewed and finalized and the functionality has been built by the developers, the functionality will be available for you to test. Okay, so once you are testing the functionality, then you come and fill all this information. Okay, so either you will be testing this test case because you have written it, or somebody else in the team, some other tester might be executing this particular test case. So in that case, once the execution is starting, you need to add couple of fields. So it's part of the template, so it will be there anyways prior to execution as well, but these fields will be blank, right? So review by, review date will be filled only when the test case has been documented and sent for review. Similarly, executed by is another field that needs to be there, and executed date is another field which needs to be filled by the person who is executing this particular test case and on what date. Okay, so once the review has happened and execution will start, so what usually you will do is, if you're maintaining this test case in Excel, you will create a copy of it, of the approved test case, and though that copy will be maintained as the execution or execution cycle for this particular release. So in that copy of this Excel sheet, you will say executed by, say for example, I am executing this particular test case, and then I'll provide the date here. Okay, so 1st of 12 2020, right? And then I'll perform all these steps, I'll provide the actual result, right? So if everything works as expected, I'll just mention as expected here. Okay, so actual result here in the execution details, I'll say pass, and if there are any comments, I'll mark those comments, right? So if, say for example, this test case passed, I'll mark all these steps as passed. If there are any comments, I'll provide those comments, and then save this test case as an execution within the execution folder. Okay, so this is how I will maintain the test case in Excel sheet and follow the process of review and execution in Excel sheet in any project. This is very rare. Most of the time you will be using the test management tool to maintain your test case, but because you need to understand what all key fields are there, right, in a particular test case, that is why I have explained the template into the Excel sheet, and then how to write the test case into Excel sheet. So even though you are using any test management tool, you still need to understand what are key fields. Say for example, test case ID, created by, reviewed by, review date, because all these are automated field or dynamic field. If you are using test management tool, this test case ID will be generated dynamically, created by, reviewed by. All this will happen as part of the business process defined in the test management tool. So in order to understand these fields, it becomes important that you understand these with the Excel test case template. Okay, and with this approach, even if your project is using Excel sheet to maintain the test cases, you can easily use this template to maintain the test cases, maintain the executions. If you want to correlate this template with any other test management tool, you can easily correlate the fields now that we have understood in this template with any other project which has any test management tool. For example, Zephyr, X-Ray. These are, test management plugin for Jira, or Qtest, or Test Log, Test Trail. Any test management tool you will go, you will find all these details you will be able to use in the test management tool, right? So that's all for this particular tutorial on how to write the test case in any testing project, along with the practical example that we have seen. I hope that this was clear and helpful, and I would highly, encourage you to basically, say for example, you are working in any of the testing project or startup who uh, the team who maintains their test cases into Excel. You can easily, provide your inputs as a tester. Your job is not just to basically go ahead and execute the test case and follow the same practices that they have been following. There are many open source test management tools that are really helpful, so you can recommend any of those tools that can be installed on the server, or over the cloud with very minimal costs. And you can ask them to switch to the tools, because maintaining all these test case in Excel sheet is really a pain. So the review is pain, the execution is all pain, so it has to be maintained in Excel sheet, and there might be multiple copies. Versioning is very difficult, so it is always helpful to switch to test management tool. And as a tester or as a test lead, you can always recommend your expertise and your knowledge to switch from the Excel sheet test case management to the actual tool, test case management tool, be it open source, be it paid, as per the budget of the organization. So that's all for this tutorial. Hope it was helpful and clear, and you'll be able to understand all the details, and it will be helpful for you to crack the interview questions as well on the test case template and how to write the test case. So that's all for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching.